You're listening to episode 36 of Liz's Healthy Table.
Looking for a healthy new way to feed your family without the hassle and hype? Welcome to Liz's Healthy Table, where your host, registered dietitian nutritionist Liz Weiss, serves up fresh and flavorful recipes with a tasty side of science, good nutrition, and fun. Are you and your family ready for some wholesome food that tastes great too? Don't change that dial. Your food adventure starts here.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. Today's show, it's all about National Family Meals Month. That's September. And I've decided that for this show, I'm going to give you lots of tips for gathering your family around the table or the picnic table more often. And we're also going to talk about different recipes, but I'm specifically going to dig in to seafood supper inspiration. I want everyone to eat more seafood. It's so good for you. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk seafood suppers. We're going to talk family meals. And I've got a brand new recipe. Well, I've got lots of recipe ideas, but specifically a brand new recipe that I just created. And it's for Parmesan Salmon Sticks. So kind of a take on fish sticks. And I've got this zesty, lemony avocado sauce that you serve on the side for dipping. So I'm going to give you that recipe. And then we're going to talk about why it's such a great recipe. You know, I've just had it for dinner. I brought it to a Labor Day picnic. So we actually ate it cold. And it kind of reminded me of a much tastier, much healthier version of fried chicken. But it's salmon and it's super delicious. I'm flying solo on today's show. So I hope you're really hungry because we have lots to get through. Liz's Healthy Table is brought to you by my friends at superhealthykids.com. Check them out for recipes, meal plans, cooking videos, and tips for feeding kids of all ages. My show is also brought to you by the Parents on Demand Network. This is an app. Download it to your phone. It's filled with parenting podcasts, including shows like the Healthy Family Podcast, hosted by Marianne Jacobson. Now, Marianne is a mom. She is a registered dietitian. She was actually a guest on my old show, which was from way back in the day, Cooking with the Moms. And Marianne is an expert on everything from tackling picky eating to tips for eating more mindfully. So she's just super brilliant, and I hope you'll tune in to the Healthy Family Podcast. You can learn more at parentsondemand.com. Okay, so let's start kind of digging in to Family Meals Month. Now, this is a celebration. It was started by the Food Marketing Institute, and you can learn all about it at fmi.org. And so basically what they want you to do is, well, they say raise your mitt to commit. And they want everybody to commit to adding one more meal, family meal, to their schedule every week. And so if you're eating 3 family meals together, they say kick it up to 4 family meals. And there's so much great research out there on the benefit of family mealtime. We know that when kids eat frequent meals with their families, so 3 or more weekly meals with their families, they report feeling less stressed out, especially with teenagers. They end up eating more fruits and vegetables. No surprise, right? Because you're eating with adults and they're role modeling all those good eating habits. And they end up having a healthier body weight and less disordered eating. And they eat less junk food. So it's a really good idea to gather your family around the table and to enjoy those meals together. So let me give you a couple quick tips for making that more of a reality. Number 1 is to include your kids in kind of all aspects of mealtime. So planning. Engage them in, hey, what do you want for dinner next week, this week? You know, plan those menus together. But have some parameters. You know, you're not going to eat chicken nuggets every night. You want to be eating salmon one night and tuna one night and a delicious veggie pasta dish another night. So, you know, check out websites and magazines and cookbooks and plan those meals together. Shop with your kids, have them help you with prep. Have them help you with cleanup. So all aspects of mealtime, get them engaged, they'll have a little bit more ownership in dinner, and they'll probably be a lot more likely to eat what they prepare. And of course, since they're helping you pick the recipes, then they'll definitely be a little more excited when dinner rolls around. Minimize mealtime distractions. So what I mean is turn off the TV, unplug the devices. Those distractions really get in the way of a positive, happy mealtime. And we certainly want your time at the table to be enjoyable. So get rid of all those distractions and then keep the conversation positive. Mealtime is not the time to bug your kids about doing their homework and cleaning their rooms. Just find that time to just really keep it positive and then get the conversation going. Sally Kazemchak with Real Mom Nutrition, she's a friend of mine, and I love what she does. She's got a mason jar on the table with all of these conversation starters. So at dinner time, they pick a piece of paper out of the jar, and then there's a question. And then you go around the table and it sort of inspires everybody to have a conversation. So that's kind of a fun little tip. Another tip is to serve family meals family style. So Jill Castle with the Nourished Child podcast. Jill is a huge proponent of serving your food family style. And so what you do is you have those platters that are in the center of the table. So Johnny grabs for the broccoli, and then Jimmy grabs for the carrots, and then Johnny goes back to get carrots because Jimmy grabbed them. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's sort of grabbing food. It's more fun, more engaging. Everybody's role modeling all that good eating habits. And so instead of you sort of like plating your kids' food and dictating what they should eat and how much because you've plated it, this way everybody's just kind of grabbing everything from the center of the table, from those platters. And it's much more fun for kids. And it's almost like a restaurant in a way, one of those family style restaurants where you sit at a big table and all the food comes out. So try that family style, and I think you'll find it successful. And then finally, be flexible. A lot of parents say, we're working, the kids are doing activities, they've got all this schoolwork and commitments. But I say be flexible because breakfast counts as a family meal. And a picnic counts as a family meal on the soccer sidelines or the baseball sidelines. And so any opportunity to kind of be flexible. Or the other thing is that if you've got one parent working late and then another parent is at home or another adult, have at least one adult sit down with the kids and eat that meal. And then when that second adult comes home later, then you can all have dessert together. So you don't have to necessarily say, okay, kids eat at 5 o'clock and adults eat at 8:30 or 9. Make sure there's an adult at the table because, again, you get to role model all those good eating habits. So family meals, let's make a commitment to add at least one more family meal to your schedule every week. So if you go to the show notes for today's show, if you have a tip, a strategy, something you do in your household that involves family mealtime, go ahead and post a comment on my show notes because I would love to hear from you. So the reason I decided to focus on seafood for this podcast is kind of twofold. Well, for starters, the 2015 Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends that we all eat at least 2 servings of seafood every week. And for pregnant and nursing women, that recommendation is even higher, which is 2 to 3 seafood meals every week. And the reason is because seafood contains this powerhouse of nutrients. It's rich in lean protein, antioxidants like selenium, and omega-3 fatty acids. I'm a huge fan of omega-3s, and omega-3s play a role in keeping our hearts, our eyes, and our brains healthy. Getting those 2 seafood meals down the hatch every week can be a challenge for some families, and so that's why I've got a lot of fresh, new fish ideas for your table, as well as this new recipe that I cooked up for Parmesan Salmon Sticks. And, I know kids love fish sticks. I actually love fish sticks. And so this is a more modern, homemade version of, say, a store-bought frozen fish stick. And the second reason that seafood is the star of my family meals show this week is that I partnered with GOED for this podcast. GOED stands for the Global Organization for EPA and DHA omega-3s. And that's an organization that really is helping to put forward the science on omega-3 fatty acids, what to eat. Should you take a supplement? How much omega-3 should you get every day? And what's the benefit of these long-chain fatty acids, the EPA and the DHA? So we're going to kind of dig into that just a little bit too on the show. I'm going to give you a little bit of the science. You know, when we hear these recommendations, eat seafood, well, aren't you kind of wondering why? Like, why am I eating all this seafood? And so I'm going to give you some of the science, and it's really fascinating stuff. So, you know, when I think about my guys, Josh and Simon, you know, Simon just started at the University of Vermont. I know you guys who listen to my podcast know that Simon did a gap year, and we finally got him to college. And so Tim and I moved him in. And he's in a triple. I was a little bit concerned about that, but the guys were super nice. And he's settled in beautifully. We haven't really heard from him too much, so I assume he's doing okay. And so, you know, I sent him along with some dietary supplements, including omega-3s. I hope he takes them. I'm not quite sure how the food is at University of Vermont. I know up in Burlington, it's a super cool town. And, but I don't know about the school in terms of the food, but the food in Burlington is incredible. Like local food, local cuisine is really big there. And so anyway, Simon's off and running. Josh is living in New York. He's actually moving into a new apartment next weekend. And Tim and I are going to go down and help him move in. And he's moving to the Lower East Side. Now, if you're familiar, he was in the Upper East Side. He's moving way downtown. And apparently the Lower East Side is like the cool place to be, other than Brooklyn, of course. And he's living not too far from Russ and Daughters. Go to my website. I'll give you a link. I did a blog post about Russ and Daughters. It's considered an appetizer shop. Appetizer meaning things like lox and herring. You know, it's from like the 1800s. It's one of these stores that's been around forever. And it kind of survived this neighborhood turnover because it was a traditional neighborhood of immigrants. And then over the years, that population moved out to the suburbs. And then the neighborhood got a little sketchy. It wasn't considered the safest of neighborhoods. But Russ and Daughters survived it, and now they're thriving, and it's a super trendy neighborhood. So anyway, Josh will be down there, and I will take him to Russ and Daughters, and I will say to him, do you see the herring? Do you see the smoked salmon? You see all that lox? I want you to be here every week getting some of this. So he tends to eat out a lot, shall we say, as a 23-year-old. And I keep saying you got to cook more at home, but that's just not his thing. Hey, what are you going to do? But Russ and Daughters, I will introduce him to that. It's super cool. Anyway, so people want to know, why do I need to eat all of this seafood, 2 seafood meals a week? Well, for me, I feel like I eat it more than twice a week, but there is this challenge. There's a lot of barriers. People aren't sure how to prepare it. They think their kids won't like it. So let me give you some ideas for how to get more seafood onto your table, and in doing so, how to get more EPA and DHA, these long-chain fatty acids. I know it sounds really scientific, but you got to get them from your diet. That's the key. Your body just can't magically produce them. And in a few minutes, I'm going to tell you about the heart healthy benefits, the brain benefits, the eye health benefits. And it might really kind of blow your mind a little bit. I mean, seriously powerful nutrient. And there's been over 30,000 studies done on omega-3s. So I'm not making this up. All right. So some seafood ideas that I think you guys are really going to love. Tuna salad. So tuna contains omega-3. So you open up a can of tuna and you can have the tuna that's packed in water or the tuna that's packed in oil. It's totally up to you. And I'm not going to say one, do the oil or do the water. It's a flavor thing. What do you like? And so you open up your can of tuna and then you make tuna salad. And the way I like to make tuna salad is I like to kind of, shred up the tuna and then mix it with light mayonnaise. Sometimes I'll use light mayonnaise and then a plain low-fat Greek yogurt, kind of half and half. And I will add shredded carrot. So I peel a carrot and then I just shred it on the large holes of like a box grater. It takes literally a minute. I have time to myself. And then you could add a little bit of Dijon mustard as well. So now you've got tuna salad. You could eat that on top of a green salad. You can scoop it on top of an avocado half. You could stuff it into a pita pocket. Anything goes, okay? So tuna, easy, right? You could do the same thing with a can of salmon. And I recommend getting the boneless, skinless salmon. And, the reason people sometimes get it with the bones is because that contains calcium. People like that, but I don't think for kids that's a good idea. And it's also not as appealing. I've always gone with the boneless, skinless. Either one is fine. So my friend Ellen, who works for GOED, the global organization for EPA and DHA, Ellen had made this recipe that she was sharing with me. I think she made it when she went to her book group. They must do like a dinner party or something. And she made wild halibut baked in parchment with cilantro and ginger. And I don't know if you've ever made fish in a pouch. You could use foil or you can use parchment paper. On my website, I actually have a recipe. It's a teriyaki salmon made in a pouch. And bear in mind that salmon is like the king of the sea when it comes to omega-3s, and I happen to love it. And I like the farm raised, but farm raised, wild, again, the omega-3 amounts are pretty similar. And it's the flavor, and it's the cost, like what works for you, for your budget and for your taste buds. And I prefer the farm raised, and that's a personal preference. So Ellen made this halibut baked in parchment. It's actually a recipe from cookbook author Pamela Saltzman. And you basically take halibut, like these, 4 to 6 ounce portions or pieces, and you place each piece of halibut on a piece of parchment. And then on top, you add this mixture of extra virgin olive oil, fresh grated ginger, cilantro, chopped cilantro leaves, or you can use mint if you do not love cilantro. And I know half of you do not love cilantro. Garlic, minced and peeled and minced garlic, and some green onion, and a little bit of red pepper flakes. And you add that on top, and then you fold up the parchment into this pouch. I'll give you a link to the recipe in the show notes. And then you just bake in a 400-degree oven for 15 minutes. And you just carefully open up those parchment pouches. A lot of steam's going to come out. Be careful. But she said this is an incredible recipe. So I want to try this. And I think it would be great with salmon as well, since that's my favorite fish. So why not? So that's another idea. Okay, idea number 3, smoked salmon, aka lox, which you can add to an omelet. So what I like to do is I like to saute up some baby spinach because, you could get a whole bag of it, maybe, a 5-6 ounce bag, saute it, cooks up in like 3 to 5 minutes with a little olive oil, salt and pepper. That's my veggie. But then I make omelets and I will add some smoked salmon, some of that baby spinach that I've sauteed, and then cheese. You can use goat cheese if you love goat cheese, feta. You could use shredded low-fat or reduced-fat cheddar cheese. Again, one of these personal preference things. And then you've got this omelet. And if you really want to increase your omega-3s, you could use omega-3 eggs. I'm not going to call that a fortified food because it's not fortified. If you buy omega-3 eggs, the chickens have been fed a special diet rich in omega-3, and that's why they've got some omega-3 in their eggs. So it's not the equivalent of eating salmon, let's say, but I'd say every little bit counts, right? If you eat 2 servings of seafood a week, if you consume some of these fortified or enriched or enhanced foods, if you take a dietary supplement, which I'm going to get into in a few minutes, these are all ways to get omega-3s into your diet. And then here's another idea. Salmon tacos. I love to grill salmon and then use them in tacos. So the tacos, really kind of anything goes. I actually did a cooking class on Nantucket over the summer, and I talked about it in my Kids in the Kitchen episode. So once you've got your salmon, you can then do any number of things. You could roast some bell peppers that you've sliced up and some red onion. That can be part of the filling for your tacos. You can add guacamole or avocado, green onion. Instead of sour cream, I like to use Greek plain low fat or even regular fat yogurt. So really anything in terms of what you're stuffing in the tacos. You can use crunchy tacos. You could use flour tortillas, corn tortillas, but any kind of grilled fish or baked fish, it might be leftover the next day. And that kind of becomes the foundation or the main protein in your tacos. So fish tacos, very trendy, very popular. Oh, I also have a recipe on the website for salmon cakes, Corny salmon cakes. And that one I know many of you have made over the years. Love that recipe. So before I tell you about my Parmesan fish sticks, my Parmesan salmon sticks, I just want to talk you through some of the science of omega-3s. And I'm not going to be too scientific, I promise, but I just want to give you a sense for why you're constantly hearing this recommendation to eat 2 servings of seafood a week. So bear in mind that EPA and DHA omega-3s play a really important role in heart, brain, and eye health throughout the lifespan. And according to PubMed, there are more than 30,000 studies that have been done on omega-3s. That's pretty cool stuff. So, that's a lot of good science, a lot of good research. EPA and DHA omega-3s, the reason that they play a role in heart health is that they may help to maintain healthy blood pressure, healthy triglyceride levels. A high triglyceride level can increase heart disease risk, just like you hear about high cholesterol or LDL cholesterol. High triglycerides are not a good thing. So the omega-3s are helping to maintain blood pressure, healthy triglyceride levels, and they appear to improve blood vessel function. And your blood vessels, if you think about that garden hose, that's kind of, bringing water to your yard, the garden hose, if it's kinked up, it's not functioning properly, right? So we want our vessels to be functioning properly. And check out this really cool analogy. Just as calcium is essential for building strong bones, DHA is a building block for a healthy, strong brain. So brain health, DHA is important for brain development. It's also a really significant percentage of the fatty tissue that makes up the brain. So we talk about DHA and EPA. DHA seems to really play this important role in our brains. So if you think about pregnant moms, right, what are they eating? Well, they pass DHA to their growing babies through the placenta, also in breast milk after babies are born. So it's really important that pregnant and nursing mothers eat enough fatty fish or take an omega-3 supplement for their own bodies, but also the growing baby and specifically the brain. So that's brain health and also eye health. This is also really cool. The body's highest concentration of DHA is found in the retina of the eye. So DHA plays this really essential role in eye health, especially in infant eye development. Wow, such cool stuff. So there's 3 simple ways that you can get the recommended amount of EPA and DHA. And I'm going to tell you exactly how much you should get each day. Eating fatty fish, which we've been talking about, such as salmon, mackerel, sardines. Tuna contains omega-3. So the fattier the fish, the better. So you want to eat fatty fish. You can consume EPA and DHA, fortified or enhanced or enriched foods and beverages, or you can take an omega-3 supplement. I want to say one thing, that the plant-based source of omega-3s, the ALA that you hear about, ALA, it doesn't provide the same benefit because you have to convert the ALA to DHA and EPA, and the conversion rate is something like 5 to 10%. So you can eat some flaxseed, you can eat walnuts, but you will not get anywhere near the benefit of, say, eating a piece of salmon. So salmon, 3 ounces, has 1,600 milligrams of omega-3. Canned tuna has 325 milligrams. So you can see there's a big difference. Salmon is really the king of the sea when it comes to DHA and EPA. Now, if you were to ask GOED, the Global Organization for EPA and DHA, and remember they're really tracking the science of omega-3s, so here's their recommendation. They recommend a little bit more than that 250 to 500. They say 500 milligrams per day for healthy adults to lower their risk of coronary heart disease. They recommend 700 to 1,000 milligrams per day to slow the progression of cardiovascular disease after it's been diagnosed. So for somebody with heart disease, 700 to 1,000 milligrams. Pregnant and lactating women, 700 milligrams of EPA and DHA. And they say at least 300 milligrams of DHA. Because remember, DHA is what's really fueling the brain and the eye development. Then they say more than a gram per day or 1,000 milligrams for adults with additional health concerns, such as high blood pressure, high triglyceride levels, or cardiovascular risks. So for healthy adults, 500 milligrams. If you're taking a supplement, make sure you read the label, and you want to be getting that combined EPA DHA, 500 milligrams. So that's just like a good rule of thumb. Suzanne had asked on the podcast Posse about a supplement she was taking. It was a fish oil supplement, and it's got 300 milligrams of omega-3. It's got other fatty acids in it, but this, she says specifically omega-3. Now, Suzanne, I want you to read the label and look at the DHA and the EPA separately and then add those up. So you really want to aim for 500 milligrams. The 300 sounds a little bit low, but if you're eating seafood twice a week and you view that supplement as sort of an add-on, then I think you're going to be in good shape with that. There's also non-seafood sources of supplements, so algae, for example. So vegetarians could also look into taking an algae supplement to get their EPA and DHA. So now, the recipe you've all been waiting for is my brand new recipe for Parmesan Salmon Sticks. So let me tell you how to make the recipe. I did blog about this, so if you come over to the blog from the show notes, you could just enter my website, liz'shealthytable.com, go right into the blog. You'll find this recipe. You can search for it, certainly, if you don't see it right away. And in the show notes, I will give you a link over to this recipe. So basically, you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy center cut salmon. So I like to get sort of the thicker, meatier piece, if you will. And when I went and shopped for this recipe, I got 2 pieces. And you want to have it come out to about 1.25 pounds. If it's a little more, a little less, that's fine. The recipe will still work beautifully. And I always ask them at the market to remove the skin for me. If I'm grilling salmon, I keep the skin on. But if I'm making these fish sticks, have them take the skin off. So when you get home, what you want to then do is slice the salmon into sticks. So the measurement is about 3/4 of an inch thick by about 3 to 4 inches long. It's not going to be perfect, but you know what I'm saying, sticks, or even if they come out a little more nugget sized, that's fine as well. So the first thing you do once you've got your salmon prepped is that you season it with kosher salt and black pepper. You can be generous with this. So season it. And then in a bowl, you're going to add 1/4 cup of flour. And what I do is I just dump all the salmon in that big bowl with that flour, and I use my hands and I toss it around until the salmon pieces are coated with the flour. And then I have an egg that I crack and I whisk in another bowl. I add a tablespoon of water. And then I wash my hands, and then using a fork, I just transfer each piece on their own to the bowl of egg, and I coat each salmon stick with the egg. And then I transfer that to a third bowl. In the third bowl, what I have is a cup of grated Parmesan cheese, half a cup of whole wheat panko breadcrumbs, and then 1 medium-sized garlic clove that I mince. Mix that together, and that garlic will disperse, so kind of mix it with a fork. And then I take each piece of salmon that's been coated in the flour and then the egg, and then I submerge it into this bowl filled with Parmesan, and I coat it really well. I just use like a back of a spoon to kind of press that Parmesan coating into each salmon stick. And then standing by, I've got a baking sheet, which I line with aluminum foil, just because it's going to make cleanup a lot easier. And then I take one of these cooling racks and I place it right on top of the baking sheet. And before I put the cooling rack on, I just kind of hold it over the sink, and then I just spray it with nonstick spray. Because what I'm going to be doing is placing each of these salmon sticks right on top of the baking sheet, and again, that cooling rack. And because the salmon is elevated off the baking sheet, it is going to cook in a 425-degree oven in like 8 to 10 minutes. Really quickly. I snapped my finger. And the other thing I like to do is just very lightly spray the top of each piece of salmon with a little bit of that nonstick cook spray, because it'll crisp it up a little bit more that way. So now, and you'll see in the blog post, I show you what this looks like. I've got this baking sheet with the cooling rack on top that I gently sprayed with cooking spray. I've placed my salmon pieces on top. Into the oven it goes. And like I said, I cooked these for 10 minutes in a 425 oven. I think, 8 or 9 minutes, they'd be done as well. But they were so good. Oh my gosh, so delish. But I've made this sauce to go with it. So while that's in the oven, I have a mini food processor that I use all the time. And they're not that expensive. It's just like a little mini food processor. I think I got it at Kohl's maybe, and or maybe Target. I can't remember. Not that expensive. And one of these handy gadgets that does not take up a lot of room and that I use all the time. And so my sauce, my avocado dipping sauce, is made with 1 ripe avocado. So I just cut it in half, take the big seed out of the middle, and then I just scoop it out with a spoon. So the avocado goes into the mini food processor. Zest of half a lemon, juice of half a lemon, about 2 tablespoons, a 1/4 cup of plain non-fat Greek yogurt, 1 sprig of fresh tarragon leaves. So good, so fresh. I've been using tarragon all summer. Come on over to my blog and check out all of my recipes, because you're going to see tarragon was like my go-to herb this summer. A teaspoon of honey and a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, and a few cranks of black pepper. And I just whir that all together in my mini food processor, and now I have this beautiful sauce. So there you go, voila. It's fun for the kids to dip. You can take a knife and just kind of smear the avocado sauce on top of the salmon sticks. I chilled them and the next day brought them to a picnic on the beach, and those chilled salmon sticks were so good. I was actually with my friend Wendy and a bunch of other friends, and Wendy is a huge salmon fan, and she was just raving. She goes, "Oh my gosh, where did you get this recipe?" I said, I made it up. This is what I do. And so she was cracking up. But very easy to make, delicious, and just a fun, different way to prepare salmon other than baking it and grilling it and popping it into tacos. It's kid-friendly. It's family-friendly. You know what? You can use ketchup if you prefer. Anything goes. But I thought the avocado dipping sauce was fun and different, and we know that avocados contain healthy monounsaturated fats. So this is really like a healthy fat dinner. Do not be afraid of fat. Fat is your friend. So there you go. Lots of seafood ideas. Again, 2 servings a week. Choosing fortified and enriched foods. And then taking a supplement if you feel like you're not getting that 500 milligrams a day into your diet. Supplements, again, read labels and do the math, combine the DHA and the EPA. And I take a supplement. I take it because I just want to kind of, even though I eat a lot of fish, I just want to make sure I'm covering my bases. And some days I forget, but I try to be really disciplined about it. Every day I take my omega-3. So if you have any questions, you can always post it on my website, right? If you go to the show notes, you'll see I've got a comment section below the blog as well. So you can always ask me questions. You can join my podcast posse on Facebook, and that's open to anybody. When you go to the show notes for the show, you'll see in the right sidebar of the podcast subpage is a link to the podcast posse. Head on over. Everybody is welcome. The GoEd website is called Always Omega-3s, and I will post a link to alwaysomega3s.com in the show notes. There is a really cool thing on this website, Always Omega-3s, and that is they do a quiz, a really simple quiz, to determine if you're getting enough omega-3s in your diet. And so I highly encourage you to take that quiz, and then you can very quickly assess, gee, I'm getting enough, I'm not getting enough. And they also have a cool chart on the website where you can go and see how much omega-3 is in salmon and how much is in cod and how much is in shrimp. And so that little guide is really handy as well. As far as family meals go, a few websites that you can check out. And again, I'm going to give you links to all of this in the show notes. The Food Marketing Institute, FMI.org. Family Meals Month is September. Let's celebrate. Let's gather our families around the table more often. And they've got lots of great resources there to kind of get you on your way. The Family Dinner Project has so many resources on their website. Even they have these conversation starters based on the ages of your kids. Because, sometimes it's awkward when you have teenagers at your table and they are your own children, but they don't always converse a lot. And so the conversation starters are really designed for kids of all ages, especially those teenage years, to kind of spark some positive conversation at the table. And teenagers, they love having meals with their families. There's so much research out there to back that up. I'm not making it up. They enjoy that time around the table. And even my own kids say they really miss family mealtime because Josh is in New York and Simon's, he did the gap year and now he's in college. So they miss that. They really loved that. The Kids Cook Monday, that's part of the Meatless Monday series you hear about. It's called the Kids Cook Monday, and their whole goal is to get kids into the kitchen, cooking with their families. And when kids cook with their families, they're going to enjoy family mealtime even more. So the Kids Cook Monday, they've got a newsletter, all sorts of resources on their website. And again, go to Always Omega-3s for all things omega. And my website, of course, liz'shealthytable.com. So I hope you've enjoyed our show. I hope you try my salmon sticks recipe. It will not disappoint. If you love the show, please post a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and spread the word. Tell all your friends about the show. And until next time, thanks for listening to Liz's Healthy Table.